Greetings, everyone. Dell with Healing Frequencies Music here, and another short little video on some life lessons that I'm learning that I'm starting to pass along to everybody. And as I said in the last video, uh, I have an Instagram page where I'm putting up positive things, stuff to get you to think. They're memes for quite a while. I think I've got 150 so far. So after 150 days, we'll see what happens. Then I also post videos and memes on the Healing Frequencies Music Facebook page. So make sure you subscribe to both of those or follow me, I guess is on Instagram and Facebook. You think you follow that page too. I can't remember what the terminology is. And anytime I do something new, it always goes out to the newsletter, and I also post it on the Healing Frequencies Music page. But I encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter as well, because you get to go through my frequency mini course, which I think lasts 9 months, maybe 10, where I give you all the tidbits of information and then you get a bunch of freebies along the way. I like to send people on scavenger hunts. It's always a good time, you know. Anyway, moving on. This video is titled, It's Okay to Be Wrong. And you're thinking, all right. Now, I was a music educator, started out being a concert performer, got all the way to Yale, did my first year of grad school there. I'm in a conservatory. I'm not used to being with Juilliard and Curtis and all those people. And they were pretty intense. And I'm like, dude, I'm just this chick from North Idaho. I just want to have fun. And I had decided at that point that I was probably just going to become a band director and just go work in the public schools. So after I graduated, I came back, got certified to teach, and had to take all those education courses. And some of them shocked me. And one of the things that shocked me the most in ed classes was when you get into the behavior management or the classroom management, they tell you, I'll never let the students know you're wrong. And I'm like, why? My very first job of teaching, the kids ate my lunch. Kids inherently know if you don't know something. And then, this is how conspiracy theories come up. Because if you get up there and you say something and people out there listening think, well, the behavior is showing something else. I mean, kids seem to intuitively know. That made me really think a lot about that. And I changed my entire way of teaching. I used this program called Love and Logic, and it was developed by these two guys. The last names are Fay and Funk, Funk. I can't remember their first names, but there's Teaching with Love and Logic, Parenting with Love and Logic. There's a whole series. That saved my career. The best thing I can say about that is you got to own your mistakes. We don't like to own our mistakes because it makes us feel like we're weak. But I beg to differ. In reality, it makes you stronger. Why? Because you can admit you're wrong. And when you do make a mistake, then you can change course and let people know when it's appropriate that, hey, I screwed up. And I remember one time when I junior high, they always nail you. Junior high kids, you either love teaching junior high or you don't. But so they like to catch the teacher in a mistake. And some kid said something to me, and I'm like, oh, you are so right. Miss H did that wrong. Thank you for catching that. That means you're really paying attention. And then I said to the kid, what do you think I should do? And, or something like that. Then it happened when I was teaching in college, when in my woodwind techniques course. And I always said to my students, if you make a mistake, it's okay to own it. But, make it light. You don't want to make it heavy and do all these crazy things because kids just want attention. Society wants attention. That's why people go in and they make all these negative comments on YouTube posts, or they make negative comments on Facebook or X, because they can hide behind their computer and they don't have to look at somebody face to face. Most of the time, I call those AGDs, attention getting devices. Saw it all the time in the classroom. But the moment that I owned up to my mistake, then they got what they wanted. And I thanked them for catching me in a mistake. And if I gave wrong information, I didn't have a problem telling people I don't know the answer. Because an I don't know answer means I don't know. I'll go find out. And that's what we need to do. We seem to hold people to a higher standard than we hold ourselves to. And that's the one thing I would not do with my students. I'm not going to ask them something to do that I'm not going to do myself. And they knew that. So we never had issues. Now, the first 3 years of teaching was a disaster. I'm going to admit it. But I learned from that disaster. And it made me a better person. When it's okay to be wrong, you take the mistakes that you've made in your life and you say, what can I learn from this? And I shared in the last video about my marriage. I made some really wrong choices. Now, I didn't choose to be abused, but what I did choose to do was believe the lies. And once you start believing something, it settles within your being, it settles within your soul. Then your body goes, ew, I don't like that. And then your body gets sick and your body does all these other crazy things because you're living out of your soul. You're living out of your emotions. You're living out of your reasoning. You're living out of those kinds of things. And anytime we get so emotionally involved with something, we're shutting off our spiritual senses. I don't care what anybody says. We all have a consciousness. A lot of people call it consciousness that's pure, that really wants what's best. But if we're always living out of that negativity, then we're not going to be able to admit we're wrong, number one, because we have to feel we're right. And I say the first time I ran into this really big time was when I was writing my dissertation, because I was writing on a topic that the general community of clarinetists around the United States at the time disagreed with my thesis. But I had proof. I mean, I had solid proof. We'd done some test studies, and I'm like, okay, I know that this is what's going on when people are playing. As I was talking about what's going on inside the mouth, because we have videos to show it. And then some of the nasty things that people came back at me with, I'm like, dude, I didn't realize that we as a clarinet community couldn't support one another. And to this day, people in that community just kind of laugh at me. But here's the thing. I took my research and I used it on all my students. And I found that my students succeeded in ways that other students didn't. You know, if you play clarinet at all, you don't start teaching the super high note register, we call it the altissimo register, until you're in high school. I could get 5th and 6th graders to do it by having them do some voicing exercises. And I'm like, dude, it's because I know what's going on here inside the mouth and what you have to do with the tongue in order to make it so that you can play the high register. So I know what I had worked, but just because the rest of the community didn't know it doesn't mean I'm not going to keep doing what I'm doing. But part of the problem is they would have had to say, the way I've been teaching for the last 30 years is not correct. They were not willing to admit that the way we've always taught voicing, the way we move our tongue inside our mouth, which we do, you can see it, the tongue always constantly moving to voice on any wind instrument. We get so stuck in the way that we've always done something that if we admit we're wrong, then we think that we're less than, that we should have known better. But we have to understand that we grow and that at some point, you know, it's like Einstein. Everybody made fun of Einstein. Oh, he's a quack. But then they find out years later, he's right. How many scientists, especially since 2020, knew stuff that was going on that were censored, that it was right? Because what happens is people are unwilling to look at something new because this is what they've always believed. And just because you've believed it doesn't mean it's right. But if I look at it this way, it's not that you're right or wrong. It's just that things evolve and we get more information. And that's how I looked at my dissertation study for my doctoral degree, which I completed that in 2004. Finally, my whole point behind this, be willing to be wrong, admit your mistakes, or admit the growth, which I had to do in the marriage, and several things since then, because life is going to have bumps. There's going to be chaos, and some of it's caused by us and some of it's caused by others. But can we get beyond that? And by admitting we're wrong, we're the adult in the room. And then we grow, because then we can move further into the next thing that we're supposed to do. So that's my little tidbit for today. So with that, we'll see you in the next video. Oh, have a bodacious day.